Thanks, Dennis. Hi, everybody. I'm Anne, and I'm a little nervous. But I would have said that I was more nervous probably about 5 years ago, uh, before I had the opportunity to speak in front of large audiences. Interestingly, in my day job, I work with speakers. One thing that I love about working with speakers is that I'm giving people an opportunity to share their stories. It took me a little while to realize that that's what I love so much about it, but I do. And never did I think I would be one of those people being asked or given opportunities to share my stories. Um, so those stories, those opportunities have come in different forms. A book, I got to share my story in a book. In interviews, not just in interviews, events like this, and more often and recently, unfortunately, at funerals and memorial services.
Oh boy.
So the first one was my mom, Marcy, in 2017. There were no notes, no preparation. I just slathered on and probably repeated myself, and cried. So that was the first one. And then my brother Tom, at the end of February of 2022. Actually, in 2 days, it'll be the anniversary of the awful hysterical phone call I got from my niece. Um, it was with an audience who had differing opinions about me, but I had notes on my phone that had a lot of feeling, and I was able to share things that others in the room may not have known about my brother or our relationship. So then next, that same year, unfortunately, my sister Mary, on December 30th of 2022, after many years of being sick and not having a great quality of life, she passed on peacefully. And it was a smaller, friendlier group this time, and I was more comfortable at that time. But again, people were kind of even expecting this of me at this point. So I was getting, unfortunately, a little bit better about my public speaking. Then in November of just this past year, one of my dearest friends, Lisa, lost her second battle with cancer. And you guessed it, I was asked to speak again.
Mm.
So this one, I was fairly well prepared. I felt like I had a lot of experience now under my belt. Um, but interestingly, it was recorded, and it was actually even a little bit scary to me and almost concerning how comfortable I looked doing it. But I was glad that I was able to do it and that I was comfortable, and I think it helped other people that were there. So that felt good. So all this has to do with what I want to talk about today, about the things I've learned, about how these things are related to one another, and about how they all have to do with how we spend our time. A phrase that I learned a few years ago that I'm probably butchering, but the way I remember it is that death is just a moment in time. It's how we spend our time that really matters.
Mm.
So every time I lose someone, I take something away. And I realized recently, these things are sometimes interrelated, and it's kind of cool. So these learnings remind me of who I am, of what's important to me, about what makes me happy, and how I want to live my life. So I'd like to share a little bit about these things, and I'd like to hear from all of you and hope that you will share with me and with all of us. These lessons were learned because I didn't always do these things. I've made a lot of bad decisions and mistakes in my life, as we all do. So while I'm sharing these things I've learned, I haven't always done these things. I haven't always been this person, and I still don't always do these things. Sometimes I have to remind myself. Sometimes these lessons are about stopping and reminding myself who I am and what I care about and what I should do. So when my mom was sick, I spent a lot of time in a long-term care facility with her And I spent time with her newfound friends at this facility. And I was also by her side when she took her last breath. What I learned from all of it was to be very intentional with my time. Again, reminding you that I wasn't always doing this, but I was reminded it was very important for me to be intentional with my time, to spend time with her. And this is where I first started thinking about saying yes, showing up, and being present. And it's just a phrase that always goes through my head to remind me how important it is. And it was important to me and who I am and who I want to be, basically. I also found out that I was very fascinated with guests and how we spend our time. And I also started my journey with grief.
Wow.
So when my brother died, he was 55. It was unexpected and sudden. We didn't know it, but he had an undiagnosed severe heart disease. And after a day of being out on a boat and living his life, he had a heart attack in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
I was, as you can imagine, very confused. I thought it couldn't possibly be true. And then I thought almost immediately, life is short and I need to do what makes me happy. And again, I was reminded about how I want and need to spend my time. So then when my sister was majorly declining, similar to my experience with my mom, it was a reminder about the importance of quality of life. I knew without a doubt that she was at peace, and I felt good about the time I spent with her. So finally, when I got the call that Lisa was entering hospice just this last October, though I had just returned from a trip to Scotland, without a second thought, I knew who I was and what I did and what was important to me, and I knew what I needed to do, and I went to spend time with her. Lisa knew how to live life, and I was reminded of this in those days that we spent together. Um, she made sure to do the things that she wanted to do, and she was always someone who lived with if there's the phrase, if there's a will, there's a way. And we even went to a silent disco. And she had the best time, and it was incredible. We also stayed by the beach and saw a sunset and a sunrise, and just it was incredible. So that experience and loss was a reminder of all the things that I had already been taking away, and especially reinforced again that life is short and that I need to do what makes me happy and live life every day. Even actually after my sister's death, I have this on right now that you probably nobody can see it, I'm sure. But I bought myself a pendant that says "Live." It simply says LIVE, and it's one of the takeaways from these experiences for me, and it's a reminder to live my life. So the other thing I wanted to share was two interesting things that I realized in all of this that I appreciate you all letting me share with you. When my brother died, there was a lot of guilt, and there still is. Although I said I learned a lesson when my mother died about spending time, coincidentally, when my mother was sick and through the day she died, I didn't like some of the things that my brother's wife did. And I made it very known that I didn't like these things. And because he defended her, I decided not to talk to him. So basically, he decided the same in return or via her request. I'm not really sure. But I stopped talking to my brother, which means I hadn't talked to him since 2017. So it was now 2022, and he was gone. And so again, I was reminded, reminder number one, spend the time. As I mentioned earlier, the day after my brother died, I thought, this is another interesting thing that happened. I thought life is short and I need to do what makes me happy. And that thing that was really important to me is that I needed to stop talking about it and I needed to move back to my home state of Florida. And immediately started planning and started considering a few areas. And my husband and I decided on a spot, one that I wasn't familiar with, but my husband and I decided we liked it. And we bought a house in Oldmar, Florida, just outside of Clearwater. Soon after doing so, I learned one of my closest friends that I grew up with in Jacksonville, Florida, moved to also new to her home, just 10 minutes away from where we were moving. This friend I had been super close with as teenagers and young adults, had not spent much time with in more recent years. This friend was Lisa. And we got to spend more time together. I mean, I just thought this was so crazy when I started to think about it. Here I was learning all of these things, and here I moved 10 minutes away from Lisa. So we spent more time together in the last couple of years than we did in many years. And even then, I didn't always make the right decisions. With her being 10 minutes away, I didn't always say yes. I didn't always show up. And I've learned not to beat myself up over that. So finally, I've learned a lot. I'm still learning. I'm becoming a better speaker. I have a lot to share with others. And we should remember life is short and that it's important to say yes and spend time with those we care about. And we need to not beat ourselves up when we think we're not doing these things, but rather remind ourselves and do the best that we can. Maintain our values, do what makes us happy, and live our lives in a way that others will not say, I wish I had spent more time with her.